and double fatal shooting on I-10 Thursday could have been caused by anything from road rage to illegal drugs.
One driver intentionally strikes another car, causing it to spin out. The driver who caused the crash, along with his passenger, both get out of the vehicle. The driver then pulls a long-barreled gun.
Randy Wallace with Fox 26 in Houston. A New York City firefighter uses a hammer to bust a car window and save a child locked in a hot car. Firefighter Matthew Clinton tells the New York Post he was just there at the right time. Police arrested the father, 42-year-old Jeremy Ram, for endangering a child and possessing a controlled substance. Son is expected to be okay. The incident comes less than 2 weeks after another New York dad left his twin babies to die inside a hot car. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Parents, start your child's school year right with healthiness and fun. Complete your child's immunizations, annual physical, dental, or eye exam at FHP and receive a free gift for each exam visit. Perfect for back to school. Valid from July 15 to August 31st or while supplies last. Visit their website or Facebook page for more details. Call 646-5825 and press 2 to schedule an appointment today. Most private insurance accepted. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to Tall Tales for Friday, August 9th. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, and he'll be back in 59 days. That's the countdown. Today's 59 days. And we are, let's see, what is today? Today is the last day of summer, the last Friday of summer, if you're on a school calendar, and many, many, many families are, of course, as mine is, and so we're celebrating that. And as I'm reminded by Ray, who holds down the morning here and is the real cheese in this place. Friday's a good time to just kind of, don't get too, pull back the, don't use the axe, don't use the pickaxe, use, something else. So I'm going to see if I can't smile my way through the next 2 hours. Not that I'm going to pull many punches, but I'm not going to. I'll use gloves, okay? And we'll see how that works out. You heard in the Fox News at the top of the hour, and it's been kind of going on all day, about how the Republican leadership in the United States Senate is resisting calls to come back into session to address gun control. And I think we should use this as an object lesson, not only because of gun control, but it's kind of a lesson in the way that the Congress works, and that has an impact on all of the issues that we face in the public sphere as Americans, and so and also here on Guam as far as political status and the way that things are done. I mean, even the compact impact aid and whatnot it touches on all of those. So let me see what it looks like from outside the U.S. I have a story here from Deutsche Welle. It's the German it's like the German equivalent of the BBC. And so this is their story on Republicans resist calls for urgent action on gun control. So this isn't Associated Press. It's not the New York Times. It's not the Washington Post. It's not, San Francisco Chronicle or the Honolulu Advertiser or what. It's Deutsche Welle. Democrats and over 200 city mayors have urged Mitch McConnell to bring senators back to Washington to vote on gun control. NRA Chief Wayne LaPierre reportedly warned President Trump against background check legislation. And that was the story a couple days ago, because President Trump came out in the wake of the shootings in El Paso and Dayton to suggest that he would support legislation on background checks, which encouraged the Democrats to go back. This is not in the story. It's just giving you some background. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rejected calls on Thursday for reconvening the Senate, which is currently in its August recess, to vote on measures to address gun violence in the wake of the shootings in Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas, as I said. Democrats, gun control activists, and 214 city mayors had publicly urged Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to bring the senators back to D.C. to vote on the issue. Quote, the tragic events in El Paso and Dayton this weekend are just the latest reminders that our nation can no longer wait for our federal government to take the actions necessary to prevent people who should not have access to firearms from being able to purchase them, end quote. The United States Conference of Mayors wrote in a letter to the Republican Senate leader. Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi went as far as to ask President Donald Trump to use his constitutional powers to call the Senate back into session immediately. In February, the Democratic-led House of Representatives passed 2 bills calling for universal background checks for gun buyers, neither of which have been brought up for a vote in the Republican-led Senate. But McConnell said calling senators back to Washington would just lead people, quote, scoring points and nothing would happen. Instead, the GOP leader said he wanted to spend the August recess talking with Democratic and Republican senators about possible solutions that can be turned into a law. During an interview to a radio station in his home state of Kentucky, McConnell said that President Trump was, quote, anxious to get an outcome, and so am I, end quote. Quote, we're going to have these bipartisan discussions, and when we get back from the recess, hopefully, be able to come together and actually pass something, McConnell said. But when asked about specific measures supported by Democrats, such as restrictions on assault weapons, McConnell said that while they would be addressed, measures Trump has proposed, such as background checks and so-called red flags, quote, would probably lead the discussions. The National Rifle Association, which is an important donor for many Republican senators, reaffirmed on Thursday its commitment to oppose any further gun restrictions. U.S. newspaper The Washington Post reported that NRA Chief Wayne LaPierre called Donald Trump this week to tell him a background check bill would not be popular with his supporters. Quote, I'm not inclined to discuss private conversations with President Trump or other key leaders on this issue, end quote, LaPierre said in a statement. Quote, but I can confirm that the NRA opposes any legislation that unfairly infringes upon the rights of law-abiding citizens, end quote, he stated. Quote, the inconvenient truth is this. The proposals being discussed by many would not have prevented the horrific tragedies in El Paso and Dayton, end quote, LaPierre argued. Okay, and that's coming from Deutsche Welle, and that's just been posted in the past 6 hours or so. U.S. Republicans resist calls for urgent action on gun control. And I wanted to mention this because there's a couple of things we can take away from this, not just the article and not just the issue. As I mentioned, I'm going to be applying for a gun permit for myself. And I have to pay $140. That's the fee, at last time I checked, was $140 for the price of conducting the background checks. So what they're talking about imposing on a federal level nationwide is already done here. A local background check and a federal background check. And the applicant pays for the privilege. And there's no guarantee that a permit will be issued. The Guam police can refuse to issue you a person here a gun permit. And I'm not quite sure what the grounds might be or whether it's appealable or what, but I know that Bob has touched on this before. Also, it's interesting that the August recess. August is a terrible month to be in Washington, D.C. The weather is horrible. It's hotter than Guam. It's just as wet. And it's like those days that we have here when there's no breeze. And then all of the exhaust from the car fumes from the metropolitan area don't get washed away to somebody else. It just sits. And so the air turns brown, visibly brown. And it's not the hazy, crazy, lazy days of summer. It's just oppressive, hot, and dirty. And so Congress, going back to the 1830s or so, they've always taken August off to get out of town because it's so bad. And so they don't want to come back. They don't have to come back. And of course, the leadership of the Senate, being the same political party as the president could say one thing and the Senate leader could say something else, and then it's guaranteed nothing will get done. And this is the balance that was written into the Constitution. One house cannot compel the other house of Congress to act. They can put political pressure on by appealing to the people, appealing to the president. Only the president can convene both houses and require them to meet. But one house cannot compel the other house to meet or to address its priorities. So, now, do you remember the last time that a president was really got in trouble, political trouble, for allowing a territory to separate from the United States? Anybody? Let me see. I'll take a look at the. Does anybody online know? Do you remember? I'll give you a moment. See if anybody pops up with the answer here on Facebook. I've got Richard Leon. I've got Dottie Briola saying half a day Dottie, and Smug Wimp. Hey there, Smug Wimp, and my friend like Smug Wimp, but also long time Eddie Cruz is with us this afternoon, and let's see, I see Al Batista and Ken LG, the other governor, Leon Guerrero. So I don't see anybody popping up with when was the last time a territory was severed from the United States, allowed to go drift its own way, and there was hell to pay for the congressional leaders and the president. Political fallout. And that was the Panama Canal, when it was given to Panama. 1979, I think it was. And so Washington has been really not in any kind of mood to... if you heard this morning on Ray Gibson, Ray Gibson's show, he was talking about the Secretary of State in Puerto Rico being the third governor, the second and third governor in a week. And there may be another governor in the next couple of days. Well, the lieutenant governor in Puerto Rico is, as a matter of succession, is called the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State on Guam, there was a Secretary of Guam under the Organic Act, the original Organic Act. It was replaced by the Elected Governorship Act that was amended the Organic Act. And so Denver Dickerson was our last Secretary of Guam. The Secretary of Guam worked under the Secretary of the Interior, and he was usually a career employee and a technical person, and he was the one who had to countersign everything from that the appointed governor would be presented with, whether they're bills or proclamations or whatnot, because the governor was the appointed, maybe a political appointment, and not a career administrator. But the Secretary of Guam was the career administrator who answered to the Secretary of Interior. So that's where the Secretary of State in Puerto Rico was, why it's so named, but it's really the Lieutenant Governor. Yeah, let's see. Eddie Cruz says you have to draw a line on when a gun becomes an item capable of mass casualties. For the common citizen, a weapon that fires one shot at a time is sufficient for protection or for sport. If I wanted to take someone's life, it would take only one shot. Or maybe you're a good shot, Eddie. There's some people who are not and don't get a lot of practice in, and so they have some kind of a, they're trying to emulate their favorite action figure, and so they want to have, and companies are certainly willing to manufacture and market. It's the American way, right? As long as there's no law against it, go ahead and produce it. And even when there is law against it, you can produce it and maybe sell it out to somebody else. But we have laws that restrict gun ownership, and as long as there are guns around, whether you have a permit or not, there are going to be guns floating around. And so there is a balancing of interests, and whether it's capacity or it's access, or it's access by people who make us a little nervous having access. So, but this is going to continue to be discussed as long as we have these high-profile events involving firearms, and so much for the Second Amendment, which is keeping us, well, certainly we're not, the people are not, we can protect ourselves with the guns, but are we a well-regulated militia? And we don't have to be, but do we have a militia to have a free state? No, our militia is provided for under the laws of the United States, and that would be the U.S. military. They guarantee our freedoms here on Guam, and we're not. We don't have to keep ourselves free from them. So it's 4:22. Thank you for joining me. And let's go to Zami Ikatni for the afternoon. And so just like yesterday, the Pacific Daily News has seen fit to reprint an editorial from the editorial board of USA Today. Now, I'm sure they're fine people, right? And they're asking what's going on. Trump's Iran policy is confusing, contradictory. But I don't know if we're really ready to solve that problem here, or to form an opinion this afternoon right here on Tall Tales in a manner that will allow us to bring our good senses to bear on that problem. We have to depend on those folks over there to take care of that, because they don't listen to us because we don't vote for them. Whether you're talking about the president or the Senate or the House of Representatives, as long as we don't have any weight, they vote for them. They don't have to listen to our opinion. But we have an opinion, of course, but we won't concern ourselves with the president's Iran policy this afternoon. So we're going to skip the PDN editorial and go straight to the Guam Daily Post editorial, which is reporting red flags can save children from sex predators. Let's get into this, okay? Sex trafficking is a problem around the world, and on Wednesday, the problem hit right here at home. Residents read in horror Wednesday about an FBI operation that freed a young girl from an alleged sex trafficker right here on our home island. While details of the criminal case remain under wraps, federal authorities said Operation Independence Day resulted in a federal case, quote, against a 33-year-old man who allegedly trafficked a minor girl to a 48-year-old man in exchange for cash and drugs, end quote, the FBI stated on its website. The girl was freed and the matter remains under investigation. The operation on Guam in early July was part of a nationwide sweep for sex traffickers that included the identification and recovery of more than 100 juvenile victims of sex trafficking. We hope no more children will be traded for cash and drugs. This case is an example of how bad the drug problem has gotten on Guam when people are willing to trade the innocence of a young child for some cash and drugs. Sex traffickers are not the only predators who see our children as prey. There have been too many instances in which children were sexually assaulted, raped, or threatened with harm if they spoke out about the abuse within their home or to other people who are supposed to protect them. Blood relatives, a teacher, and a university professor have been charged with or convicted of sexual abuse of children who are minors or students under their care. We have seen more than 200 complaints filed by men and women who were young children decades ago when they were allegedly abused by priests. In a recent case, a former pastor was sentenced to 14 months in prison for sexually touching a teen member of his church who suffered from depression and contemplated taking her own life. The prosecutor in the case said this pastor even used his pulpit to criticize the victim and her family for speaking out. Husbands, grandfathers, cousins, uncles, and close family friends of victims have been hauled off to prison for sexual abuse of children. When will these crimes against our children stop? Our community needs to be more vigilant about changes in behavior among children. School nurses, school counselors, teachers, and neighbors have been doing their part in reporting red flags as they see them. A sudden change in behavior at school and signs of self-harm are among the signs to watch out for, and we need to do more. Predators can lurk at home or close to home. Changes in pattern in a home within our neighborhood can be a red flag. We need to keep our eyes and ears open to changes from what's normal in our community. It takes all of us to be vigilant. No child should have to live in terror and pain from sexual abuse. They're absolutely right. They're absolutely right about the bottom line. I'm not quite sure whether we are prepared to take that responsibility on, whether watching the neighbors, assessing children, neighbors' children, relatives, nieces and nephews. We should keep an eye out in our own family for abuse. And what I understand from when I was growing up here is that pretty much everyone knows when it's happening. People know. The problem isn't to keep your eyes open. The problem is speaking out. That's the real problem. The shame that people fear for not speaking out, for speaking out to bring shame on the family, allows the abuse to continue. That's the problem. Because children do communicate. But if they are discouraged from communicating or they're told that they're not believed, and the adult who knows or the neighbor who knows doesn't speak out, that child truly becomes a victim again because of others who would rather see the abuse continue than to make it known to authorities that this is going on. So I'm real concerned that there's nothing really said about that here. It's like, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes open. No, people know. I remember as an elementary school boy being warned not to be alone with certain people. Don't be alone with those people. And if they do something to you, come back and tell me. That is what should have been in this article. It's not the red flag. It's waving your own red flag when you see something. And so I'm going to refrain from giving a star to this editorial. It doesn't encourage action. It just says, look. It doesn't say speak out. And that is a glaring shortcoming in this editorial today from the Guam Daily Post. And that's Zami Ikatni for Friday, August 9th. It's 4:31. Let's take a break here and we'll come back with more.
Coast 360 introduces our new youth banking program. Give your kids and teens a head start with Kids 360 and Teen 360, a program designed to help your child develop smart financial habits and learn about money. Introduce them to banking and get them on a path towards a thriving financial future. Plus, new youth members get a special lunch tote just in time for back to school while supplies last. Learn more at coast360fcu.com or visit your favorite member center. Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive. Terms and conditions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new ciabatta collection. How do you want it?
I'll take the slam poultry.
Sure. Italian ciabatta with mozzarella. When hunger reigns, you're my favorite umbrella. Tasty garlic steak and provolone. With you, my taste buds are never alone. Savory chicken pesto, you have my affection. For you complete the ciabatta collection. Thank you. That was the new ciabatta collection by Subway. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Absolutely. Taking a look at friends on Facebook, they're discussing well, let's see. Let's go back to it. There a couple comments about me drawing from Deutsche Welle, and then also about the way that guns are regulated here on Guam. So let's take a look at some of those comments before we move on to something else. Let's see. Smugwim says, foreign liberal press is still liberal press, only I ignore them more. And that you can. You know, this is kind of the, we have such a rich environment on this information superhighway. We can go anywhere and get any information we want. Instead of just, before, like when, years ago, you had the three major networks, PBS, and then you had the Associated Press and United Press International that fed stories to the newspapers and radio news around the United States, and then that was that. Out here, you'd get the Stars and Stripes, but that was it. That was it, and even the Pacific Daily News or Guam Daily News was drawing heavily on stories from outside of Guam. Didn't have a lot of local stories. Only the only pipe dreams, Joe Murphy's pipe dreams. And it was sort of like the 6-paragraph or 8-paragraph equivalent of the Ray Gibson Show and Tall Tales. So if you don't trust foreign liberal press, well, you have access to hundreds of sources of news. And I think you could even hit the translator button and find some news to your liking. Eddie Cruz says, gun out of control. If politicians would handle gun control, identifying guns responsibly, would not be having this discussion. Assault weapons are purposely built for the military and should be classified with bazookas, missile launchers, RPGs, and mortar launchers. And then Smugwim says, assault weapons have the same capability as any other rifle. And then Richard Leon says, the mainland story of death in El Paso and he says Davenport, but it's Dayton, way above the mental aptitude. Little Lou, LG, and GPD, and so on. Consider the customs guy and his story, or the recent Bola Bola in the Southern School and that adult. Excuses, fester excuses, just saying. And Leslie St. Nicholas is watching from Hawaii. And Sherry Iriarty has joined us here, listening on the radio. Thank you. Eddie Cruz says, you have to draw a line on when a gun becomes an item capable of mass casualties. For the common citizen, a weapon that fires one shot, I read this before, one shot at a time is sufficient for protection or for sport. If I wanted to take someone's life, it would only take one shot. And then Smug comes back and properly identifies the president who was mortally embarrassed by giving up a United States territory and allowing it to become part of, subject to the sovereignty of another country. That was Carter. That's right. And then he also answers back to Eddie Cruz saying, that's your opinion, mine is way different. And adds his favorite action figure is Jackie Chan. Smugwim now. Eddie Cruz, I respect your opinion, but because someone abused the privilege, people have died. That causes me to change my mind and compromise for the sake of safety of innocent people. We on Guam are well regulated and will accept that because we regard human life higher than other places on the mainland. Our gun laws are very restrictive, and I have no problem with that. Jen has joined us, and Richard Leon adds, Guam public merits the silence of the lambs syndrome, and let's see. There's okay. That was, we're jumping forward and jumping forward. I wanted to say that the restriction on guns on Guam goes back a long time. It's not that it's difficult to get a gun on Guam, but they want you to sign up so they know who's got the guns. So that if somebody's walking around with one and they're not licensed, it's an immediate, as the term goes, red flag. So that's kind of where we're at. But in the United States, they don't even want that. They don't want that kind of restriction. You have a right to own a gun. You shouldn't have to have a background check. You should just go out and buy one if you want one. And gun being a gun, that's covered under the Constitution. It's kind of an extreme view if you've taken the other side, and vice versa. But we can see the merits of regulation. But some people don't want to have regulations eroding our constitutional rights. Tito Guay says, I've learned there is more in life than Guam politics. Because of political decision and desire for power, those leaders that are sincere in what they do tend to be caught up and degraded for political means from those who want to retain power for many reasons. money, control, jealousy, etc. Some leaders have fallen in this trap. Some have financially benefited in the long run till today. Others whose only reason to be politically involved was to serve our people have disappeared in the wind. It's an addiction that's hard to overcome once you run and make it into office. Stand by your convictions and your sincerity in what you do, and don't let detractors in your life, and always watch out your back. One thing powerful leaders on island hate are those who question their authority, motives, and leadership. Push on. In the end, it is the will of the people that will decide any leader's future, good or bad. Like Uncle Chu says, same shit, different year. Wake up. We've hurt ourselves enough. These are serious times, and we have serious problems that have to be solved. Like our smart young delegate stated, same old merry-go-round every election. Now I think I understand. Por favor, leaders van mata. That's what he says. And that's thank you for that, because I don't think that we can really stop talking about it. Because as long as we can, and we can get the word out, then we actually need people not to just know, like with the abuse of children, sexual abuse of children, the abuse of power, the abuse of trust, the abuse of public resources to maintain a status, to maintain a career at the expense of those who are supposed to be served, is something that the current leadership should be hearing from you. I'm sure they're hearing me say this, and so I'm already getting my word out. And I don't have to go and knock on every door. But when I see them, they know what I've been saying. And I just have to smile and nod and be civil. But it's going to take many, many, many more people, not waiting until campaign time, not waiting for the next election, because they're in now. They are now costing us money. They are now making decisions. We need those decisions to be more beneficial to us and less beneficial to other priorities besides the people who put them in. That's what Tall Tales is about. And so, thank you very much. Irenio St. Nicholas Jr. says, we don't need any more regulations on guns. And Shelley Gibson's with us. Hi, Shelley. We're not talking about more regulations on guns here, because whatever they pass in the States, we've already got it here. We're already living under that regime. Some would say we're already enjoying the fruits of that labor on the part of our lawmakers. But the discussion you're hearing in the national news and the whole discussion about Second Amendment freedoms, it's the question of whether they're going to be eroded in the 50 states to the extent that they are already eroded here on Guam. And how much does it hurt you or help you is up to you to decide. And so that's what we've been kind of talking about. Did you know that there's an island-wide bus stop cleanup tomorrow? Just in time for the new school year, every bus stop on island is getting a facelift. Let's hope that everyone who's working on those bus stops is duly licensed as a cosmetician to be performing facelift. On August 10th, yeah, that's tomorrow, from 8 to noon, the Guam Department of Education, Gov Guam, and Island-Wide Beautification Task Force are hosting an island-wide bus stop cleanup. DOE itself John Fernandez from GDOE says they plan themselves to clean up about 100 bus stops. DOE probably has around 25 to 27 bus stops. We've organized our volunteers, parents, military organizations, other school partners to come out on Saturday from 8 to 12 and hopefully be able to help clean and paint prior to the start of the school year, he said. We have already been soliciting for volunteers, and students that participate will be able to make some progress towards their service learning requirements. They are required to get a certain amount of hours. But then we have a lot of people within DOE and within the community that have wanted to find a way to help, and some of them already come out and adopted bus stops in their villages. If you're interested, let's see, it's 4:45, you can call IBT at 475-9380, 475-9380, and that's the Island-Wide Beautification Task Force, 475-9380 for a bus stop near you. There is a bus stop near me. I don't have kids using it, and it is pretty regularly trashed. There's no homeless people living in it, but whether the trash is coming from the people, from kids walking up and down the street, then ducking in to get out of the rain or out of the sun, and then they leave their drink behind, or if it's whatever the deal is. I don't see any reason why anybody living within walking distance of it can't walk down there with a broom and a trash bag and pick up. But already somebody has cut the tangan out of the hibiscus bush nearby and trimmed all the grass around it. And so it looks a lot better. And I don't think it should be only, it becomes a terrible mess during the year. I don't think it should be only the day before, a couple days before the beginning of school. I think our children deserve to have a clean place to go and sit down while they're waiting for the bus. And for the parents to come and sit down while they're waiting for their little ones to arrive at 2 in the afternoon. And that either they can come with a broom and a trash bag and make themselves busy for 5 minutes, 10 minutes while they're waiting, or clean up, just, whack it a little bit, or come over and toss a bucket or two of water with Clorox and a little detergent on the place to allow it to freshen up a bit. And the people who are, next to 1 or 2 doors down, when they're out there with their lawnmower, go over there and whack down the grass. And it should be something that's an ongoing concern out of pride, our own pride in our own community, and to assist our own neighbors and friends on our own streets. Yes, somebody put the bus stop there, and it belongs to that entity. I'm sure if you misuse the bus stop, somebody's going to come along and say, this isn't yours. And maybe they are the ones who are supposed to come and clean it or come and monitor it. But really, it's for the benefit of our kids. And so thank you, whoever you are, as volunteers. But it really should be the people who are right there in the, within a couple of doors, going out there and spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes once a week. And if enough people do it, it'll every bus stop would look nice. And so, just saying. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to get a frowny face today. I really don't. Here's something amusing. As GMH patient numbers fall, hiring increases. I'm so happy they're hiring more. And yes, they should be able to address some of their problems because they're able to hire more over at GMH. I'm happy for them. They have enough money. They have enough of authority and budget to hire more people. But the article doesn't say, except sort of peripherally, oh yeah, we've got about 5 more nurses, net. And maybe when you read between the lines of the article, nurses need to be paid more. And I know that's something that the governor is requesting for a study. Actually, if you're losing nurses because of they're being purchased away because of pay scale or working conditions, then you know that your pay scale is too low. So, what do you need? And also, if the private hospital is doing the same thing, then you know that the market is having a hard time affording the level of care that objectively we'd like to have. So somebody's going to have to tighten a belt. And I'm not talking about over at GRMC. They know what they need to do when the writing is on the wall. They do what they have to do, and that's private. But the government of Guam needs to act in its own interest. I mean, in our interest, as if it were private. For us, that we're the owners, and they're the ones hired to manage and man the functions. Well, it's 10 minutes to 5. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back with more Tall Tales.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Real Joe, for those guitars. I love those guitar bumpers. Hi, Linda. Linda Gabriel's online. She's waving her hand, and we go back some years. In the trenches. And let's see, the discussion continues online about gun control. Tita Guay says, when you buy a gun from a gun store here, they call and get the FBI clearance before they release the firearm. And that's how that is, right? Then Smugwim comes back and says, Chicago lives under the most stringent gun control around, yet someone is shot every 3 hours and 10 minutes. Someone is murdered no less than once every 17 hours and 7 minutes. See, that's how gun control works. The reason Guam has been without major incidents is because of the family atmosphere we have. But as the island grows, that, quote, everyone knows everyone, starts eroding. And as we get more metropolitan, the more susceptible we become to being like any other city full of people who live next door but still don't know each other. And ain't it the truth? We become, it used to be that everyone knew each other. The island had, 85, 90,000 people. Started to get a little odd. And that was where were the big sea changes in Guam's population? The first one was when the workers that were brought in to assist with the military bases were allowed to use their time on Guam as a basis for converting their immigration status from non-immigrant to immigrant. That was the first. And that changed the communities all over Guam as and we had Filipino immigrants who became part of the community, but then there was this big flood of immigrants who then petitioned for their family members, and this is back in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and then the Filipino community of Guam started to grow, and it wasn't growing side by side, intermingled with the Chamorro community and the Statesider community, and the Hawaiians we had Micronesians who had immigrated to Guam for work, to immigrate to live here, or to make businesses, to get an education, and to live here. And you've heard me mention this before. There was a Ueda over in Paget. That was a place you took your VW, to be repaired. It's just the fact of life. Well, with large immigration came major changes. So we became more metropolitan. And this was following the lack of local control on immigration. Control over immigration was exercised by the federal government up until that time. And it's still practiced by the federal government up to this time, because the controls are the same as whatever controls are in the United States. And that's the compact impact. It's whoever wants to go freely across state lines, and whoever's admitted legally into the United States. And so we have a different population now. And it will continue to change. So when Smug Wimp says that we're becoming more metropolitan, we're getting so that we don't know each other, that is just sort of the way that communities change by generation everywhere, where it's dynamic and it's a desirable place to be. And at the same time, people who were born and raised here have moved to Las Vegas and Vallejo and Long Beach and Oxon Hill and Georgia, this Minnesota, what's that? Whidbey Island, that area. There's 128,000 Chamorros, ethnic Chamorros living in the 50 states. And this is not to place a value, an overall social value on this. It's just the fact of our life. Mingo Ree says, make all the laws you want, criminal don't follow laws. It starts at the home community atmosphere. That's right. That's why crimes are statistics. We think of them in the aggregate, they become statistics, but they are committed individually. And that's why we have criminal justice. I can't understand. I'm not going to frown about this, but I cannot understand, and perhaps someday we will be made to understand how it is that a ranking officer of the Department of Corrections can plea out to a misdemeanor after participating in the smuggling of contraband which includes not just contraband, but illegal items in the community generally, smuggling those into the prison, and be allowed to plea out when it was his duty to bring this activity to the attention of law enforcement. It was his duty. He was paid every day to do that. And not only did he not do it, he participated in it. And he benefited from it personally. So I just don't understand how the criminal justice system can tolerate that kind of behavior on the part of our officials. and our public employees. Well, gotten to halftime here. It's a minute before 5 o'clock. It's just about time. If you're at work, you are free to go. The weekend has started. I'll be here for another hour, so do stay tuned, and I'll keep you company on the drive home. Is when you get out in that traffic. The last Friday of summer, and the last Friday you're not going to be competing with all the school activities. It's 5 o'clock. We'll see you on the other side right here on Tall Tales on the Point.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
An armed man in another Walmart. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Only days after 22 people were shot and killed in a Walmart store in El Paso, Texas, a man wearing camo and body armor and carrying a rifle boldly walks into a Walmart store in Springfield, Missouri. The manager hit the fire alarm. Shoppers raced to the exits. The man with the gun bailed out an emergency exit, but was greeted there by an armed off-duty firefighter who held him until police arrived. Lieutenant Mike Lucas of the Springfield, Missouri Police Department says it could have ended badly.
His intent was not to cause peace or comfort to anybody that was in the business here. In fact, he's lucky he's alive still, to be honest.
And was taken into custody with no shots fired. They're still trying to learn why. The police department in Allen, Texas confirms they did get a call several weeks ago from a woman whose son is now charged with the El Paso Walmart massacre.
She was inquiring about purchasing a firearm online and whether or not a 21-year-of-age person could make that type of a purchase. We attempted to answer all her questions regarding that, and then she had inquired about the emotional state of her son and his level of maturity, and she was concerned that with him owning this type of a firearm.
But Sergeant John Felty says the woman answered no when asked if her son was suicidal or a threat to others, so no action was taken. What looked like a traffic accident on a crowded Houston freeway Thursday afternoon was actually a double murder. Police say a driver forced another car to spin off the road. Its two occupants were then shot to death as other motorists watched. Police say they found drugs in the victim's car. They're searching for the killer. Asian stocks closed Friday mixed. Dow futures are down more than 70 points. Dow gained 371 points on Thursday. This is Fox News.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Parents, start your child's school year right with healthiness and fun. Complete your child's immunizations, annual physical, dental, or eye exam at FHP and receive a free gift for each exam visit. Perfect for back to school. Valid from July 15 to August 31st or while supplies last. Visit their website or Facebook page for more details. Call 646-5825 and press 2 to schedule an appointment today. Most private insurance accepted. FHP Health Center, our island, your clinic.
Some of the country's biggest tech CEOs will meet at the White House today to discuss violent online extremism.
Under growing pressure to deter mass shootings, the White House says today's meeting will include senior administration officials along with representatives of a range of internet and technology companies. President Trump earlier this week said the internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and that he's directed the Justice Department to work with online platforms to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike. The alleged gunman in the El Paso mass shooting was linked to a racist screed posted on the anonymous online message board 8chan before the attack. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
A police officer in Michigan has been suspended after a family toured his Muskegon, Michigan home, which was for sale, and they say they found racist memorabilia in it. Rob Mathis said he spotted a KKK application in the home as well as Confederate flags on the walls. Officers Charles Anderson, a 20-year veteran of the force, is on leave pending an investigation. As the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season approaches, forecasters with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration say there might be more hurricanes this year than they first forecast.
The end of El Nino is bringing with it more favorable conditions for hurricane activity. NOAA gives its official hurricane predictions in May, then updates them in August before the peak months. Dr. Jerry Bell is NOAA's lead seasonal hurricane forecaster and says there's now a 45% higher likelihood of an above-normal season.
Now, an above-normal season has the highest chance of occurring, whereas the May outlook indicated that near-normal activity was most likely.
2 named storms have formed so far this year, including Hurricane Barry, which hit Louisiana, and the peak months of hurricane season run through October. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
In New York, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new ciabatta collection. How do you want it?
I'll take the slam poultry.
Sure. Italian ciabatta with mozzarella. When hunger reigns, you're my favorite umbrella. Tasty garlic steak and provolone. With you, my taste buds are never alone. Savory chicken pesto, you have my affection. For you complete the ciabatta collection. Thank you. That was the new ciabatta collection by Subway. Limited time only at participating restaurants.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
You remember the was it puffed wheats, the cereal that's shot from guns. Da 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 da. Boom. That cereal that was shot from guns. You'd have to be in your 60s to remember that. So if you remember it, yeah, you know where we're at. But welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, and I will be with you until 6 o'clock this evening as I'm sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in 59 days. That's right. And we're not, like Ray has been, promoting, no frowny faces on Friday. Let me see if I can get through the next, the weeks to come with that in mind. Don't need to be getting my stomach in knots sitting here by the microphone and with you talking, because we're all together here. Got a caller on line 1 to help kick off this hour. Well, we had a caller on line 1. Well, maybe they'll call back. In the meantime, let me see. You know how Bob has the card? Well, I'm kind of struggling to put together my own card because I'm helping my wife get, things ready for our boys to start school, and I was, running a new circuit for the dryer and that kind of thing, right? So I don't have a lot of show prep time. Let's see. Daily Post reports that $1.2 million in tax funds are to be mailed out on Monday. KUAM last night reported that $2.1 million in tax refunds to be mailed out on Monday. And they're both talking about 777 tax refund checks. So one of them is wrong. It's either 1.2 or it's 2.1 or, and that's the difference between the two stories. KUAM says, including refunds garnished to repay government debts for error-free returns. Okay? So if the 2.1, that includes the amount that's going to be garnished, but that 1.2 may be the net that the Post is reporting, because they don't say anything about garnishments. They just talk about error-free returns. It's the same batch. It's the same story, but two different numbers, 1.2 or 2.1. So I'm not really sure who's right, but I'm sure that the government is going to get its cut. If you are expecting a check you filed before February 14th, before Valentine's Day, and it's an error-free return, and you owe for GMH or something, they'll carve it out of there. That check will be short, and they'll tell you. So it's happened to me, and I don't really complain. You know, if they're not going to give me a straight bill, I'm not. You know, they can take it in my taxes. They will get it, and I don't mind. The poet laureate of Tall Tales has written an ode to the fallen tree in the Bank of Guam parking lot. What happens when you don't care for a tree? Ask a Bank of Guam employee. You can't go very far with tons of fresh wood on top of your car. So even if you are backed by the Guam legislature, there is no way to win a fight with Mother Nature. Yeah. And there's no you know, Mother Nature is dealing those cards out to women leaders as well, not just to men. So thank you very much, Andrew, for that light note there. What else do we have here that was of something of a light note? Ah, yes, this is something that Bob sent me as a suggestion. And then we'll get back over to some of the comments online. I see Lynn Tidinko is there. Hi, Lynn. I haven't seen your smiling face in person in quite a while, but I do remember you. So happy to have you with us this afternoon. And let's see, who else was here? Tichur Niratrek said, thanks, Daryl. And I'm not quite sure what for, but I'm happy to, I aim to please. Thank you. Let's go to line one. Line one, you're on the air with Tall Tales. Good afternoon.
Hey, how's the day? Buenas.
Buenas.
Yeah, you've been doing a great job. I haven't been busy the last few days, so I haven't been able to tune into all your stories. Today's Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Yeah.
Which means blessed, peaceful Friday.
Well, we need it. And and it can be. You just have to put yourself in the right frame of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was me who called a few minutes ago, and then when you said keep it light, and I decided I shouldn't call because I was gonna bitch and moan a little bit. But,
well, you can, but just do it with a smile on your face.
Okay.
You could be sardonic. You could be the Joker.
Okay.
But keep it light. Just do it like you're a song and dance man. And Smug Wimp does this to me all the time. He'll make a point that's it's as heavy as lead, but he's smiling and he's tilting his head and he's just having a good time, throwing his weight around. And yeah, you can make the point that way too. Our leaders don't get the point that way, which is why we don't hit them with a smile.
Yeah.
But I always smile when I talk to them because I hit them every other which way.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem, praise God. And that's the only hope I really have. You know, I'm a Somali, half Chamorro, half Irish.
Yeah, like me.
Jewish. And and I'm 28-year veteran of the Air Force, so I've been on and off Guam quite a lot ever since I graduated from high school. And just reading the paper in the last year or so, and after coming back recently too, in the last 4 months, it's just both. Not just both, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary branches of our government are really disappointing. You know, and I know I hate to criticize just Guam because even the federal government's messed up. You know, look at the Democratic conspiracy theorists of Donald Trump, who actually wouldn't want to do it.
It doesn't matter who you point at. Everyone's doing it. It's like this. It's like this bad style, a bad hairstyle these days.
Exactly, and we're talking about self-determination. We're talking about wanting to take control of our island, and yet we continue to elect people who are just. It's amazing the things that our government officials are getting away with or attempting to do, and then get caught and reverse and then when they get finally prosecuted, it's for nothing. Like Limo, you know, Jeffrey Limo,
yes.
You know, he was not only their spokesperson and a lieutenant, he was their internal investigator for the whole
internal affairs, yes.
Internal affairs, and yet he was the kingpin, and all he gets is a misdemeanor with a statement that maybe he might want to try to apply again.
Well, you know, my friend, the judge, isn't going to like hearing about me saying this about her, but, you know, I have to remind you, and everyone out there listening, that judges are appointed by politicians. And do you think that when something comes their way, if they don't recuse themselves, that they don't sort of, you know, scratch the back of the, you know, return the favor at some point? I just can't. I can't imagine why you wouldn't throw the book at him, or why the feds wouldn't step in, because you know DOC gets federal money, so he must be subject to federal laws. And if there's anything that he's done, as far as, you know, promoting prison contraband when there are federal detainees and they're awaiting deportation. If any of them had a cell phone or smoked a joint or got some ice or you know, whatever the deal was, right?
Right.
Why isn't he up on federal charges?
Yeah, and you know, he was a role model. I mean, I used to admire the guy when he was spokesperson. You know, like wow, you know, looks like the prison's getting some pretty sharp people and all this other stuff. Only the smooth, I don't know, scammed. It seems like everywhere we go, it's just one big scam.
But who's getting scammed? Who's getting scammed?
The people.
Yes, the same people who put them in.
Yeah,
the leaders in. And that is the point we need to make in August of not an election year. Because the time to put the pressure on them is now. It is not to wait until, you know, after Christmas season, right? Until we get into you don't want to wait until you slam the door on them when they come up to your door and ask for your vote. No, that's not the time to do it. They got to work now. They have to compete with each other to try to outdo each other to stop the malarkey.
Yeah.
And I don't want to frown.
And Ken is trying to do voter reform.
Yes.
And I think he's absolutely right. Get rid of the primary. Just go straight to the general. Let anybody, independent, Republican, Democrat, run. And then hopefully we get a whole bunch of new people with a new agenda, like an independent constitutional libertarian party or something.
Does it have to be a party? They just have to be people who, they just have to be well-meaning people who are going to seek out other well-meaning people and then form consensus on priorities. That's all that's needed out of our politics, and we need the politics.
Mayors, senators, governor, and auditor, and anyone else who gets elected. We need to elect the prosecutor instead of attorney general and things like that. And
the elected lawyer.
And just hopefully, we're better than that. We're much better than that. We have lots of, working with the Guam Air National Guard, the Air Force Reserves. We've got some of the best people in the fields of trade, administration. I mean, we've got some bad apples here and there, but Guam is not reflective of what our leadership is doing now.
Our leadership is not reflective of the people who live on this island. They as they approach us for their votes, they try to draw a common to draw for us how they are like us, and so they will represent our interests well. And that's reflected in the number of votes that they get. But then they get in, and it's Jekyll and Hyde, It's like they were taking acid. I don't know.
So first class tickets for special people, and we just let other people get away with crime. And what does that tell criminals and tells the rest of the people on the island when they see this kind of failure of justice, failure of leadership, and just a lot of corruption, that it just makes everybody say, well, if you can't beat them, join them.
Well,
and that's a sad state to be.
It is a sad state to be, but this is a not frowny Friday, and so we're going to smile.
Trust that God's going to take over and wake us all up and say, hey, it should be like the military motto: God, family, country. And if you keep those priorities straight, you don't need to worry about the no's or the don'ts.
Well, but God,
do the right thing.
God doesn't have hands.
Yes.
Except our hands.
Exactly.
He doesn't come down and start shouting from the cloud tops. Hey, what the hell are you doing? He doesn't do that. He leaves that up to us.
Yep.
We're supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be his living presence in the world.
Tons of churches and stuff, and yet.
Oh, you know what? There was a time when I was growing up that when somebody got out of line, you took him out in back of the house and you beat him with a 2x4 because he would get the point. And you do it before things get too far out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we've lost the ability to self-correct. And of course, I'm not giving up on this. That's why I'm sitting here this afternoon. I am not going to give up on the effort. But I certainly need about 8,000 or 10,000 people to think like me that it is time now to move.
Yes.
Move.
Again.
Get up and say something.
Yeah.
Say something that you're not going to put up with it anymore. Ken reminds me of this. He's reminded me a couple times of a scene in the movie Network. You remember the Howard Beale gets up and he says, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey.
It's time. It's time.
What do I have to do? Bring my gun in here and shoot a round off in the in the mic not at the microphone, but and it would probably bounce around in the room, and my the guy who pays my salary would probably take it out of my paycheck. But what do we have to do? What's gonna be enough? What's enough? Enough is enough. What's enough? What do we have to do to say it's enough? Somebody has to do something? No, we have to do something. It's not waiting for, it's just too much. It's already too much. It's like this creeping, like the red ants been going up your leg, but they haven't bit you yet. You don't wait for them to bite. You start brushing them off.
Yeah.
And so, But, it's nice to talk with you this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
Call again, please.
Buen provecho.
Buen provecho. And have a real good weekend. And please say a prayer for all of us.
And myself, yes.
Well, pray for me because, we all need to pray for each other and we look out for each other. Otherwise we're just, just minding our own business and waiting until the storm is over. It ain't going to be over. We're talking politics. Politics is not over. It is us. We are politics. That's why those guys are our representatives, Those are our elected officials. We put them there. We gave them that power, and we refuse to discipline them. And they're pissing on the rug. Where's my rolled up newspaper? I'm gonna hit him with the editorial page.
Hit him on the nose.
Yeah. Stop that. I'm running out of pads.
Yeah.
Gosh. I don't like the smell. The house is better than this.
Expecting more. Because if we don't do it now, our children are at jeopardy, their children are at jeopardy, the rest of the island's at jeopardy.
I think if you ask the people who have gone to the States and you ask them, they'll tell you, I have had it. I don't have to put up with this. Life is better, and I don't have to engage politically. I just have to get myself on a plane and go. Right. I'm tired of it, and I don't want to confront people on it. Yeah. This isn't life. But we're here. We're here. And just like the definition of the for self-determination, you got to be here in order to vote. And just like the definition that Dave Davis has been going for, as long as I'm here, I get to vote. Well, if you're voting, then why don't you put pressure on the people you voted for?
Yeah.
We caused this problem. We're allowing the dog to mess up the rug.
Right.
It's us.
I've heard a preacher once say, there's the sin of commission, and then there's the sin of omission.
Mm-hmm.
And the sin of omission is not doing anything, just being silent and just letting everything go by, versus the sin of doing something where you broke the law purposely. And
we're all sinners.
If you see someone breaking the law and not say anything about it.
And we're all sinners. But we should have been that the crime of omission was what allowed our church to get into the pickle it's in right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our church, and we allowed it to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And we knew it was happening at the time.
Yeah, and it's not just the Catholic Church too.
It's everywhere.
Churches and it's just people in general, and we have an obligation.
Yeah,
to each other to say something, to do something.
To do something. Say something, speak up, and do something. Because, we're actually improving our lives by addressing and facing our problems head on.
Potential partners. And, they might end up being your in-laws. They might, and, I don't.
How about just saving a? How about just
kind of stuff sucks? We need to get out of that too. And
what about just saving the life of somebody who's depending on you to be a responsible adult? A child is expecting the responsible adults to care, and when we as adults don't care, they're messed up. It's like permanent.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we've got people, having trouble.
They hear this news. They don't really read it and get into it big and heavy, but it's subliminally, and they talk about it sometimes too, and they hear it, and they just get fed up. And I have some sons that graduated from FD, and so when I visit them in San Francisco or Oregon, they tend to brotherhood stays tight together, and a lot of them are just choosing to stay there, and they don't want to go back because they tried going back, but they were told to do things that they knew that's not the right way to do it, and they just finally said, forget it. They're young, and I got better opportunities elsewhere, and where I can be working at my highest potential if I'm a chemist or an engineer or an auditor or whatever it is, instead of being held back in a society that believes in mediocrity. I don't know, mediocrity. And
mediocrity is the normal. And unfortunately, that has held back Guam. Guam could be a model community if we were able to successfully counter that sentiment on the part of our, relatives and friends not to give up on the island.
Cultures are dynamic, and we've been through a lot of occupations. But before the Spanish came, the Chamorros were 65,000 or so strong. And to be on an island with no power, no metal, no this, no that, and thrive the way they were thriving then before the Spanish era attack proves that we have the ability to not only navigate and fish and farm and build homes and have society and do it successfully. We can do it again. We still have that. We still do it. Actually, there's pockets all over this island where we're doing it right.
But we just think of this. Come up. You went back too far. You're going back to Magellan time, okay? But come more contemporary. It's my mother going through World War II. And the 120,000 or so Chamorros who are thriving in the mainland. Absolutely thriving. Right. And they are at the top of their game. They have fulfilling lives. They are loved and respected as professionals and as neighbors and as friends and as relatives. They're treasured. I know, because I lived over there, and it was special for me, for my friends, and coworkers, for me to be present. They just absolutely loved it that I was there, that I chose to be there. And I had myself a blast. Every place I worked, they begged me to stay and be promoted. Every single place.
Yep.
And they just absolutely loved it. And as I talk to other people, it's the same experience. I resolved very, very early on that no matter what the temptation, I would come back here and devote myself here. And I've spent 35 years after coming back, and I'm just grinding and grinding and grinding myself, just grinding through life. And it's, I find my fulfillment where I can, and but I can see why people would just go. Like my niece just left 3 weeks ago with her husband and 3 kids. They just up, and he went in January and found a good job in Kentucky, and she packed up, and she had to argue with his parents. No, we're not going to stay here. What are we staying here for? We got lives to live. Why are we going to live the extension of your life? And on the plane and to go, and I was like, here, let me give you $1,000 and just go, have fun. You don't need it because your husband's already there. He's set up, and you guys have a house and everything. Just play money. Just have a good time, and enjoy your life. Another niece, she just up, and she went to Minnesota in the middle of the wintertime 2 years ago. Wow. Because she found that she could have a better life as a professional. That she was working here, and she had and she was well liked. She got online, and she found a place to live, and she got job interviews lined up, and she bought a ticket, and she got over there, and she landed on her feet, and she's never looked back. Yeah. And multiply that by 100,000.
We have excellent examples here. Pedro or Pete Duenas, Mezcala restaurant.
Yeah.
In the seafood competition of America, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
To rise to that level, we have capable and competent people that can do these things. Lots of them.
Well, let's enjoy, and we are all living, the ones who are here, we just have to appreciate each other, but we need to have, in our public sphere, we need to have better, more conscientious and effective leadership in order for life to be not a bag of problems, but a peanut-sized thimble full of opportunities, diamonds of opportunities. It's 5:34. Got to take a little break here, but thank you so much for your call this afternoon. Oh, he's gone. Let's take a break.
65 years ago, Bank Pacific opened its doors to our community. As we celebrate, we offer you a special 65th anniversary personal loan rate for as low as 4.65% for travel, back to school, a wedding. Do whatever you want with the money. We just want to give it to you for as low as 4.65% APR. It's our birthday present to you.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal opportunity lender, member FDIC, conditions apply.
Whether it's for business or pleasure, staying connected when you travel is always essential. And now when you travel to South Korea, enjoy free data roaming with Docomo Pacific. Navigate the city, look up the best restaurants, email back home, or post all your pictures, all on the go for free. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your postpaid account is ready for roaming. You plus Docomo Pacific. Better together. Some conditions apply. See print ad for details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, inviting you to try their double-cut pork prime rib chop featuring a lightly smoked double-cut pork prime rib chop, pan-seared and oven-roasted to a juicy finish. Served over a crispy potato hash cake, sautéed vegetables, and a black cherry wine sauce. Available in Agotnia and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. Pat had a good time having that little discussion before the break. Coming back here, I want to read something here. It's Friday, and we've got a weekend ahead of us. Getting ready for those of you who have school-age kids in your house, you're getting ready to start school again and get on that schedule for the next several months before we start getting into the holiday season. But let's take a look at a few light items here. Samsung. This is coming from Bob suggested this today. Samsung ditches headphone jack after jabs at jackless rivals. Yeah, Samsung. No, well, the story will say. Samsung executives have long poked fun at rivals for ditching the headphone jack in smartphones. With the new Galaxy Note 10, the company will now be doing exactly the same thing. The Note 10, announced Wednesday, squeezes in more battery power and other goodies, but at the cost of the familiar old jack. So now the company is doing an about-face and declaring that many people use wireless headphones anyway. Samsung, which for years has pushed bigger and bigger displays, is also introducing a smaller version of the Note for those who think phones have just gotten too big. The new Note models will come out August 23rd. The main model is called the Note 10 Plus and will have a display measuring 6.8 inches diagonally. Though the display is bigger, the overall size is about the same as last year's 6.4-inch Note 9. To accomplish that, Samsung shrank down even more of the bezel surrounding the display. The smaller 6.3-inch version will be called the Note 10 and will sell for $949, or $150 less than the Plus. It's designed for those who want the Note's signature stylus without its once signature size. Quote, you hit a certain point where you can't get much bigger without being physically too large to hold. Technalysis research analyst Bob O'Donnell said, quote, that's the challenge they are running into. Hardware innovation in mobile devices has been slowing for years. Samsung is addressing that with a foldable model, with twice the display when unfolded. The Samsung Fold is coming in September after Samsung made a few design changes to address problems with reviewers' phones breaking. Apple is expected to release new iPhones next month. A version that works with next-generation 5G cellular networks isn't expected. Samsung will have a 5G version of the Note 10 Plus for an undisclosed price. I'm sure that price will be disclosed. Prices don't stay secret for long, not if they want to sell them. The Note 10 Plus will have a 7.5% boost in battery capacity over the Note 9, though Samsung's high-end phones have already been promising all-day battery life. Yeah, you know, the seasons, the days get shorter. Company officials say that while the 3.5mm headphone jack might seem small, every smidgen of saved space can help extend battery life. Samsung is including wired headphones that plug into the phone's USB-C and charging port. An adapter for other wired headphones is sold separately for $10. Apple and Google have also ditched the standard headphone jack. Yeah, and that's an article from, let's see, Technavia. Associated Press, Samsung ditches headphone jack after jabs at jackless rivals. During the Fox News at the top of the hour, we heard about how the president wants the leading the social media networks to identify mass shooters before they strike. That was a quote. Identify mass shooters before they strike. Now, where in the world will you ever get the capability to identify people who have this, who might do something? Identify them with particularity and intercept them. Well, it's already being done, right? They're doing it by targeting you in particular with advertising. They're already targeting you with particularity for your propensity to perhaps lean one way or another on an issue, for your voting, the probability that you will vote for one candidate or another. That's the whole brouhaha over the social media and the influence with the fake postings and sites that affected the last couple of elections. But in China, they are perfecting the surveillance state. So all the U.S. has to do is to bring over those the People's Army folks who are running the detention centers in the Chinese Northwest, where they have about 1 million people in detention, or the people who run the who are perfecting the face recognition stuff in Shanghai, and consult with our people in the United States about how we can bring that technology into the United States. Right? Or we could just do it here on Guam. It's like a manageable area. Like, we're not going to get mass shooters, but you have to have like a test platform, right, to test community. Maybe we could volunteer for that. There's little cameras all over the place and people hard at work. It's good for the economy, right? More jobs. I guess more jobs in India or someplace. But anyway, that's kind of the life that where we live, especially when you get $1,000 phone, and it can carry all of those apps and connect all of your Internet of Things, and you're surrounded and cocooned by your electronics, then someone can be sure whether you are potentially a mass shooter. For people who still carry around the old flip phones, or it's just a phone, it's not really a data thing. It's just a way to make phone calls. It's a data phone, right? A digital phone. A little harder to track, but that's life in these days. Now that Real Joe's back in the saddle, I have something to read to you. Got it? Ready, Real Joe? This is the Ballad of Bob's Mustache.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Let
It's 5:44, 5:45. Time for the Ballad of Bob's Mustache. This was first unveiled, first presented by Andrew, the poet laureate, back on June 23rd. Hey, Tall Tales folk, don't let it slip the news about our Bob. For now it's bare, his upper lip, from eating broccoli rabe. Some say not true, it's balderdash, but sad it's as I fear. That once fine, stately, great mustache, it bit the dust. Oh dear. Hold on, I saw him yesterday, and he was looking fine. That well may be, just as you say, but was it genuine? Don't fret, dear folks, and worry not, for Bob will be okay. The thing now on his lip he bought, a miniature toupee. Hey, you don't have to wait until Sunday to go to church.
Makes me wanna.
You're supposed to do that at 4:20. At 4:20, you're supposed to. That's supposed to be you put a timer on that.
It's tomorrow time. Tomorrow time, 4:20.
Well, how is it that I would know what that is anyway? Well, was I there? Do I remember? Am I supposed to remember these things? Gosh, somebody might walk in and take my blood for screening just for because I'm at a federally regulated function in front of a microphone with a broadcast transmitter on the other end. There's an article special to the Washington Post by James Millward that caught my eye today. And he's a professor of history at the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. That's my alma mater. He writes, "We need a better middle road on China. Here's how we can find it." Now, this is kind of an interesting title just itself, because China considers itself the Middle Kingdom. Before, if you look at the symbol for China, it's like a rectangle with a vertical line through it. It's like the middle. And that was before the Europeans discovered that the world was round. They considered themselves the middle of the world, extending left and right, north and south. Conceptually, the middle. So let's see if we can think about this when we're talking about putting missiles on Guam, political self-determination, the gnashing of teeth and the caterwauling and the imperative to address injustices and all that stuff, right? I mean, I can exercise that academic and that aspect of heritage, my personal heritage, with the best of them. But let's just look at the way that it appears from someone else. How does this whole thing appear? The U.S. versus China. And this is the big card. You know, it's the fight that's going to keep fighting, because that's kind of the world we live in today, right? It's not like this isn't 1966 anymore. Two recent open letters from academics and policy analysts have staked out positions for the future of U.S.-China relations that seem diametrically opposed. In fact, both camps rehearse older approaches, and neither offers what the United States, China, and the world now need from the relationship. Both common ground and confrontation, rooted in human values and focused on shared global problems. Let me repeat that. This is what we should be aiming for. Common ground and confrontation, rooted in human values and focused on shared global problems. What are the problems that China and the United States have in common that we both have to work on? The first letter says that, quote, China is not an enemy, and advocates returning to the engagement policy of the last 4 decades. I signed this letter, whose points are eminently sensible, whatever you think of China, because the alternative, demonization of China, is dangerous. But I agree with critics of this approach who argue that for decades, engagement sidelined human rights in the name of trade, without assuring progress in either. Non-engagement, also known as decoupling, is not an option. Just try for one day to avoid anything associated with China, including the U.S. government, of course, since China underwrites more than $1 trillion of our national debt. But business as usual engagement has done nothing to prevent appalling abuses within China, high-tech totalitarianism, and 3 million indigenous people in concentration camps, and growing bellicosity abroad, weaponized islands in the South China Sea, and open threats to Taiwan. Nor has it resolved unequal market access, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, or other trade issues. Nor has it resolved unequal market access, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, or other trade issues. We must engage, but we need new rules of engagement. It's 5:51. Let's take a short break here, and I'll continue after this.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam.
Hafaday, this is Congressman Nicholas. Our office is currently visiting our villages, providing contact information for our office, and taking any inquiries we may be of service with. All vehicles and staff are appropriately identified for your safety. Please feel free to let our constituent outreach team know how we can be of service to you, and thank you for your kindness.
This ad was paid for with official funds from the office of Congressman Michael F.Q. San Nicolas.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
You know, I was going to actually get into something that Michael Bitwakwa said, but we'll get back to this. It's a very broad topic, this U.S. versus China. So we continue this letter by James Millward to the Washington Post. The second letter calling on President Donald Trump to, quote, stay the course on China makes little sense given the wild incoherence of Trump's China policy. Trump's circle talks tough, but in a nasty, counterproductive way. Former Trump strategist Stephen Bannon has reconvened the Red Scare-era Committee on the Present Danger. National Security Advisor John Bolton sees a clash of civilizations with China. State Department Director of Policy Planning Kieron Skinner says the former Soviet Union was within the Western family, while China is a great power competitor that is not Caucasian. The FBI calls China a whole-of-society threat and fears Sino-U.S. scholarly exchanges lead to espionage. And Trump political advisor Stephen Miller wants to ban all Chinese student visas. Trumpist China hawks echo the racist xenophobia that is this administration's original sin. But in reality, Trump has been anything but tough on China. Withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership was an act of unilateral disarmament, undermining the U.S.'s bargaining position and confusing U.S. allies. Trump's withdrawal from the UN Human Rights Council allowed China to line up 36 of the worst rights-abusing countries to publicly endorse the concentration camps in Xinjiang. After an attack by thugs on protesters and bystanders, Trump commented that Chinese President Xi Jinping was responding to Hong Kong demonstrations, quote, very responsibly. Trump's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is blocking a bill with bipartisan congressional support to use the global Magnitsky Law to sanction Chinese officials behind the ethnic transformation camps. Trump's one assertive policy, his trade war, has produced nothing except economic pain for common Americans and Chinese alike. Trump's China policy is bluster masking appeasement. Bluster masking appeasement. The U.S.'s China policy, like our foreign policy generally, needs clearer principles. It also needs sharper tools that target the Chinese Communist Party, unlike the blunt tariffs, demonization, and arms buildup that hurt ordinary people while affording little practical leverage. After Trump, the United States cannot credibly talk about exporting American-style democracy, but it could, if sincere, reconvene allies around a common principle of, quote, human values. This would be an assertive stance, since Xi's Chinese Communist Party has denounced, quote, universal values as anathema. But the United States, with its allies, should still welcome China to join in a, quote, human values-based international order. Despite narrow Han chauvinist nationalism at home, Xi's party state has articulated such a higher vision in its foreign policy rhetoric. A second corollary principle should be, quote, respect China. Chinese culture underlies East Asia the way the Greco-Roman and Judeo-Christian traditions suffuse the West, and is just as rich and multifaceted. We need humanistic diversity in our common repertoire of ideas, just as we need Chinese minds and markets to address climate change, global inequality, artificial intelligence automation, and other pressing problems. From this position of informed respect, however, the United States must confront head-on the horrors of the Chinese party state that it inflicts upon its people. Cyber tools and financial forensics can challenge party oligarchs who offend human norms by exposing their corruption and targeting their vast foreign holdings. Insofar as the Chinese Communist Party behaves like a mafia, confronting it as one affords more precise leverage. Confronting it as one affords more precise leverage than commerce, taxes, or Cold War. U.S. acquiescence to inhumanity like that in Xinjiang encourages the party to export such methods to Hong Kong and beyond. It could lead Xi to risk an attack on Taiwan. Yet decoupling is unrealistic, nor can the world afford for the United States and China to fritter away years waging Cold War as the climate warms. The United States should thus both respectfully engage China and forthrightly confront the Chinese Communist Party in pursuit of the human values we all share. James Millward is a professor of history at the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. And that's kind of where I did my shaving and shaping and and whatnot of my thought processes. And I chose that school on purpose. Run by Jesuits, and yes, there was diversity of sexual orientation that was present in the day. It didn't get in the way of life. It's 5:59. Time to bid you a very pleasant weekend. I'm Darrell Taggarty. Happy to sit in with you on Tall Tales this afternoon. I'll be here next week at Monday afternoon at 4. Do stay tuned for more fine programming on this station, and for Ray Gibson at 6 o'clock on Monday morning. In the meantime, please enjoy this weekend and count your blessings for being right here on Guam and enjoying the life we do have. Good evening, everyone.